So I call the meeting to order. City of University Heights City Council meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, July 14, 2020. And the meeting is being held by Zoom electronically. Roll call, as I said, we have 4 council present and Doug will arrive later. Approval of minutes. The minutes were circulated of June 9th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will be approved by unanimous consent. Okay, now we'll go to public input. City Council limits public input to 5 minutes. Any questions you may have may be answered later under committee reports. If not, someone will get back to you later on. Chris, did you have something you told me you wanted to?
Yes, I received an email, as I believe the council did, and I was asked to read this into the meeting, which I'm happy to do. Actually, I'm going to take these off. Dear University Heights City Councilors, last month, the University of Iowa's Digital Scholarship and Publishing Studio launched a website mapping historical segregation in the Iowa City area. You can access the website here, and a URL is listed. The interactive map included in the website clearly shows that University Heights had the highest concentration of segregated housing in the Iowa City area. In other words, what is now our city was an outlier in the region. In all, 241 lots in our city had race-restrictive deeds, and again, a URL is listed. For context, the largest subdivision with race-restrictive deeds was Cottage Reserve with 86. The language in the deeds includes that lots were for the sole use and benefit of the Caucasian race, and no lot or parcel shall be sold, owned, or used or occupied by the people of any other race except when used in the capacity of a servant or helper. The deeds, available through the above-mentioned website, can be directly accessed here, and there are 3 URLs. A closer look at the deeds reveals the names of those behind them. For 218 of these lots, Lee, Reka, I think is how you pronounce it, George, and Tessie Kozer were responsible for the language, while for the remaining 23, L.R. and Elizabeth Lemer were responsible. These individuals are still honored with street names in our city, and there is even a recent article in the University City website, URL, paying homage to one of them, Lee Kozer, the city's first mayor, who incorporated University Heights in order to avoid paying taxes to support public schools. See Daily Iowan, June 19th, 1935, page 8, URL noted. Note that the housing segregation was legal in the state of Iowa until the 1960s. I call on the city to consider honoring these individuals whose names are on our street because they own the land, to reconsider honoring these individuals whose names are on our streets. Mainly, they own the land on the eastern side of University Heights. They were responsible for the largest concentration of legally enforced segregated housing in our area and were therefore outliers in their time in setting up segregated housing. Their language would have prevented my family and many other U Heights families from living in our homes. It is time for change. I would like to hear back from you with concrete ideas on how to address this issue. Best regards, Juan Pablo Urcad.
Thank you, Chris. I understand that Silvia would like to speak and also Jay. Silvia, would you like to speak now?
Yes, thank you. Council, tonight's council package provides no update on the council's intent to implement 100% Ordinance 235. The city is now about 11 months out of compliance with the ordinance. In the meantime, other cities and enforcement agencies are looking to University Heights model ordinance for guidance in this period of reform. What remains to be implemented is not the responsibility of the city attorney or the police chief, but action from the council. At this point, inaction equals opposition to Ordinance 235 because doing nothing prevents the ordinance from being fully operational. Because of your inaction, Council, the Citizens Advisory Board has not received training, has no procedures, and there's no public notice for persons to file complaints. I'm not here tonight to urge you to take action. I'm here to remind you that you have a legal duty to keep the city in compliance with its own ordinances, especially those that concern civil rights.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jay, would you like to speak now? Would you introduce yourself to the council, Jay?
Yeah, I'm Jay Between. I have a relatively minor issue. I just wanted clarification on smoke detectors for rental properties. I talked to both Terry and Brian. They are going to require, and I agree with the requirement to have interconnected. So if one goes off, they all go off. I searched for units that have that feature plus both the photoelectric and the ionization features. Photoelectric and ionization, one detects smoldering fires, the other detects hot blazing fires. I can't find any unit that has both those detections, interconnectivity, and is battery operated. There are ones that are available that you can hardwire in, which is about $600 worth of electrician's work plus the cost of the units. So I've asked both Terry and Brian if it wouldn't be better to have both those sensors, but they said basically pick one or the other, get an interconnected unit and forget about it. I just don't see that as being the optimum decision when it's a safety issue. So I don't have a solution because I can't find a unit again. So if you, as the council, could find something that fits the bill and make that available to us landlords, I'd be willing to spend money. I'm not trying to get off cheaply. I'm trying to do right by my tenants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Would anyone else like to speak to the council tonight? Okay, we'll go on to mayor's report. The hotel project, I don't see that Jim Glasgow's here tonight yet. So we'll go on from there. He did send a couple pictures, so maybe he's running late. Okay, farmer's market update. The farmer's market has been a great success. So far, I've encouraged masks, and a lot of people wear masks, and there's hand sanitizer on both ends, and they're stationed 6 to 8 feet apart. And people, patrons have been very good about going up and selecting something and waiting in line and then going up there so that they're not all clustered together. And it's been improving every week. And Troy, did you want to say anything about it? Troy's been helping with the market, the police, and I see that Troy is on, but maybe he's not there right now. But anyway, it's been a good success. And so far, since it is safe, we're going to continue. But if something changes, we might have to discontinue it. But so far, the vendors are happy and the people are happy that they feel safe. I've talked to them about it. Then discussion of council goals and next steps. I want to defer that until later when Doug arrives. So we'll do that later on. And then I have consideration of motion to appoint Mike Haverkamp as temporary city clerk and provide compensation for his services. I'm sure most of you know Mike Haverkamp. He's here tonight, and he is working with Chris at being her temporary help while Chris undergoes. She gave me permission to say she's having carpal tunnel surgery, one on one hand and then 2 weeks later on the other hand. And so I want to present to you consideration of motion to appoint Mike Haverkamp. And I propose that he be paid at $18 per hour.
So moved.
I'll
Moved by
second.
Casey and second by Sarah. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's carried. Okay, then I want to talk about,
Hey, I'll just jump in really fast, Louise. Thank you.
Oh, Mike Haverkamp. Okay, sorry.
Thanks, everybody. Can I get Jay's last name? I'm helping Chris with the minutes and I didn't catch it. When Jay spoke
yes.
earlier.
I'll
You
send
want
it
me
to
to
you.
spell it?
That, please.
S is in Sierra,
Mm-hmm.
P-E-C-K-E-E-N is in November.
P-E-C-K-E-E-N. Perfect. Thank you, Jay.
You're
And
welcome.
thanks, everybody. I'll be helping out as Chris needs it and look forward to working with everybody again.
And I want to thank everyone for approving this. My hands have gotten much, much worse because of the pandemic, so I thank you all.
We wish you the best, Chris.
Thank
And
you.
a speedy recovery. Thank you. And then the last thing I have is I wanted to make a request for council to set up a special committee. After reading the newspaper from June 19th and seeing an article in the Press Citizen about that the city of Iowa City had restrictive covenants in parts of Iowa City that prohibited sales to occupancy by Black people. I talked to Pat Yagi, the city historian, and Steve Ballard, and reviewed some of the history of University Heights and the founders. And instead of going over that history right now, I want to suggest to council that they form a special committee to review the history and review the names of the streets and make recommendations to the council as they see. And I see a committee of maybe 2 council members, Pat Yagi, the city historian, which I didn't tell her about, and also interested citizens who live on Lemur, Kozer, maybe, plus other citizens, interested citizens who lived here a short time and long time. What does the council think of that?
I support that. Get some community members to kind of get together and, think about, research more of the history and make recommendation on what we should do.
Is anybody right now think they're interested in serving, council member interested in serving on that? Can they tell me right now? And I know Doug's not there to say either, but if you don't want to say right now, I'll work on it the next week, and then we can put out volunteers that we want from the city, residents, and people who live on the streets, and other people interested in studying this further. Is that okay with the council?
Yeah, Louise, I'd be interested in being on the committee.
Okay,
This is
thank you, Casey.
Casey. And I also want to, is it JP who wrote that letter?
Yes, it's JP.
Yeah, I just want to commend him for some nice research. I certainly wasn't aware of this, and I find that, University Heights being segregated is kind of appalling. And I'm really glad that we're going to have people on it that don't just live on Kozer or Lemur Court. They have a few other people because, there'll be some work to be done by those folks. And I think we need a little bit more comprehensive a committee. So are you going to set up a time later, or how do you want to do that?
Council can get back to me this week, and then I'm gonna ask for volunteers today at the meeting and also put it on the website. But I'm also going to reach out to some longtime residents who live on Kozer and Lemur, you know what I mean? And see.
Okay, yeah, okay. Just keep me informed, keep me in the loop, and I'll be happy to serve. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move ahead with that. Okay, so then the next thing is legal report. And before I want to start, instead of first consideration to number 447, or 247, I'd like to talk about consideration of resolution 2017 approving certificate of completion of renovations for 24 Olive Court. I see Steve Gordon is present, and Steve Ballard, it's part of your legal report. Did you want to make a comment first?
I'd be happy to. Don't want to repeat too much. Some of the new incoming or the new council members, I'm not sure how apprised you were of the process, but the city acquired these two properties from the hotel developer as part of the approval process of the hotel project. And then the city did a competitive RFP process and the council appointed a committee which scored applications, ultimately made the recommendation to the council that both properties, 23 and 24 Olive Court, be sold by the city to Steve Gordon and Frank Wagner's entity. And then there were certain specified improvements that had to be done to the units before then the city would permit them to be resold. And in addition, one of the conditions of resale was a covenant recorded with the Johnson County Recorder that prohibits a further rental permit for the allowed length by Iowa law, which is 21 years. Anyway, so 23 Olive Court, everything was done by the original deadline of December 31, 2019, and the council approved, and then that property home has been sold. 24 Olive Court, the developers or the owners asked for some additional time to complete the improvements. That was granted in, I believe, December of 2019, and the deadline was July 1 of 2020. All the improvements now have been done to the satisfaction of Terry Gert, city building official, and I think I guess I'll let Casey speak, but I think he reviewed the improvements as well. And so the recommendation is to approve the improvements as they've been completed, the renovations, and kind of give a sign off so that then the owners can go ahead and market this property and sell it.
Okay, so consideration of resolution number 2017 is before you.
Motion approval of that resolution.
Is that Lisa?
Yes.
Lisa, thank you. I'm sorry. Lisa made the motion. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second by Bobby. Okay, discussion. Well, Lisa and I went and saw it on Monday because we saw the before, and it's pretty amazing from before to after. And it's a really nice home. And even though some of the bedrooms are small, the master bedroom's large. I mean, you know, those little houses have some small bedrooms, but it has a very large kitchen over the garage, and it used to have a little tiny galley kitchen. It looks very nice. Did you want to comment, Lisa? I don't know.
I just wish they could have all seen it before. You'd be amazed.
Yeah, okay. Okay, if there's any other further discussion at all? Okay, roll call vote.
Cook,
A.
Moore,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Swales, not here.
Okay, it carried.
Carried, thank
Okay.
you.
Opportunity, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Steve.
okay,
Steve, I'll get that document to you. This is Steve Ballard.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Now, Steve, we have first consideration of ordinance number 247. I know you talked about it thoroughly in your report, but you're a starting point, and we also have Brian here. Did I see? Oh, there's Brian. Okay. Hi, Brian. So Brian's here for rental housing questions or clarifications too.
So the ordinance as of yesterday has been presented to you in two alternate forms. Both forms of the ordinance no longer require landlords to obtain information and provide that to the city concerning their tenants' name and age and educational status. Landlords aren't required to say who's responsible for mowing the lawn and so forth. Rooming houses remain prohibited. Commercial parking remains prohibited. And then there are various changes to the rental housing application forms that I won't go through, but I listed in my report and the council discussed and directed at the last meeting in June. So both versions of the ordinance have those things. And then the first version that I circulated kind of ends there, I guess I would say. And then the second version then makes changes to regulations related to radon testing and the implementation of radon mitigation strategies if they're necessary. The current state of the law says that, and this was adopted in February, and it says that anybody who wants a new rental permit won't get that permit until they show Brian that they have a test showing less than 4, I don't know what the word is, picules per liter, the standard of radon, or if they exceeded that they put in a radon mitigation system, and then they have to provide a test. I think it's 90 days later. And if you're renewing a rental permit, as opposed to having a new one, you really have a year, a year and a half from the time it was enacted, but a year from now, it would be the 2021-2022 rental year. By that time, you have to do what I just said about testing and radon mitigation. So as you also saw, Casey raised the question about, it seems a little soon or too quick or perhaps abrupt, I don't know what the right word is, to require the new permit applicants to get all that work done before the permit will issue. Couldn't we just kick that to the same deadline as the renewals and make it a year out from now? So the second version of 247 does just that. It just extends that deadline for new and renewal permits basically until the 2021-2022 rental year. And so those are your alternate 247. So obviously, if you have questions of me about any of it, let me know. But otherwise, my suggestion is that, you have a discussion and whoever makes a motion, I would just encourage you for Mike and Chris and everyone else to be clear if you're moving adoption of the initial 247, which doesn't say anything about radon, or the alternate version, which does.
And you also suggest, if
Yeah.
you want this for the rental permit period, that you collapse the vote.
I did, thank you. I did say that. We talked about that last month. The council's talked about these things for several months, and the time for reviewing and approving rental permits is upon us. So if you want these changes in place for the upcoming 2020-2021 rental permit year, that would be my suggestion, that you consider that collapsing.
I've got a couple of comments, Steve, and I guess it depends on where the council's headed on this. But I thought it was a little abrupt, and I thought it could be consistent with a renewal permit. And I did a little research to just find out how serious the radon problem might be, and it's supposed to be supposedly it is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. But to put it in perspective, smoking kills 480,000 U.S. citizens a year, and radon kills 21,000. So it's 480,000 versus 21,000. And secondhand smokers, for example, die at the rate of 41,000. So it's a significant problem. But I think that the rental permit and being able to get tenants in their units is kind of important right now. And I don't think there's any reason to put further stress on landlords. Finally, I'm a little concerned at, I've talked to a couple of landlords, and it's not all that easy to get somebody to install radon in case you're above the test line. And I was concerned about there being a bottleneck and it being a ordinance that we just couldn't really enforce. And for all those reasons, I think we should give them the same grace period that we're giving the renewal permits.
So Casey, you're just proposing delaying that requirement, essentially.
That's right.
Not removing,
Yeah,
keeping the radon testing requirement, but just.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah.
And Steve, just to clarify, that's the second option that you sent, correct?
That's right. Yep, that's the alternate version, correct.
Alternate, that's the word you called it. That's the alternate version. Okay. So Casey's suggesting the alternate version. Brian, did you want to make any comments since you're here at the meeting? I appreciate you attending. I know you've been working with Steve and Terry and Casey and Chris on this. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, I mean, it's the goal, I think, with all the forms and disclosures was just to try to make it a little easier on everybody, and it looks like we're accomplishing that. As far as the radon, courtesy to give it another year, I don't see an issue with that. But also on another side note, most of the properties I've been to already does have radon in place. So, I don't know if the bottleneck's going to be there, but another year, I think would be adequate.
Brian, this is Steve Ballard. When you say radon's in place, you mean a radon mitigation system?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of properties that already have it in place. But again, not knowing the backflow of some of the testing companies, another year would be what I thought would be adequate for everybody.
Chris Anderson, I know you've been working on this too, and you've been orientating Mike Haverkamp on it. Do you want to make any comments about, you think it's an improvement or not?
No, I'm very pleased with how we have pared the forms down. Obviously, we need to get important information, contact information, and it is for the safety of the tenants. I just want to reiterate, since Mike is helping me, that we need to have hopefully a resolution tonight.
Okay, so
outside of the changes that had to be made to the form in the ordinance, is there any chance that we could get these forms on one page by putting links like to garbage recycling? I think I asked this in the last meeting, but
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We had concerns about the size of the paper 2 years ago. So I have no problem with links being utilized. Obviously, we want to direct people to our website. We still want to make it readable, and it's going to be a fillable PDF as well as being on the website as a form that will go through a workflow process. So I'm open to anything that streamlines it even more, just as long as I don't have to type.
Do you have any ideas on what that additional streamlining might be, Chris?
I think the links that Lisa was referring to, those will be helpful. As Steve stated in his email, he isn't into formatting Word documents, so Mike and I will work on that together. And it's just paring it down so that people, I think more and more people are doing things online. They don't want to type things out necessarily, or definitely write things out, and I can attest to that. So anything that we can make the ability to drill down and get further information, I think that would be helpful to everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. If council wants to move forward with this and get it done, the voting for collapsing the vote will have to be done first. And Steve sent that motion if you're interested in
So
that.
I move to suspend the requirement that a proposed ordinance be considered and voted upon for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed.
Motion by Lisa, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Casey. Okay. Discussion? Okay, so we need a roll call vote for this.
And we're voting on alternative 2.
On collapsing.
We're voting to collapse first.
Just to
First,
collapse.
you're just voting to collapse.
All right. Sorry about that.
Okay to go? Okay. Moore,
Aye.
O'Sullivan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
no Doug, Cook,
Aye.
carried.
Okay. So now it's ordinance number 47, amending number 110 with respect to several items, including specifying responsibility of property maintenance and replacement for rental housing permit applications. And you need to define if you want to do the first one or the alternate one for the motion.
I'd make a motion to in favor of the alternate version that allows the new permits to have 12 months.
Okay, there's a motion by Casey. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sarah got it first.
Sarah seconds. Okay, discussion. Okay, roll call vote.
O'Sullivan,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
carried.
Okay, now Steve and Chris and Mike, you're gonna work together with Brian
Right,
and get the form all together.
correct.
Okay, very good. Are there any other questions for Steve Ballard under legal report? Okay, we'll go on to, I see that Jim Glasgow joined, and welcome, Jim. And so we'll go back to you, and you're going to give a report about the hotel update. And you sent 2 photos.
Right.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Do you want to bring those up right now, Jim?
Yeah, you can bring those up.
Okay.
We had a drone go over the hotel, so one of these is a picture from the drone. And this picture, yeah, there's the drone picture. So that shows you the brickwork that we're starting on the railroad track side of the building. And we're putting mortar in that right now. And we're also paving back around the garage area in the back. All American Concrete is there right now, paving some of the back areas. So we're moving along pretty well. We've got some of the limestone planks. There's kind of a vertical slab plank that goes on alongside the brick there, and we've got some of that on the back side of the building too. So you're not going to be able to see that from the street or anywhere else, but it'll be pretty impressive when it's all done. The drone picture there, you can see the roof and that little projection at the very top of the building. That's actually a door there. It's a hatch for the firemen to come out on the roof if they ever need to. You can go to that next picture then. So there's Peter Harmon and his designer. They are actually standing up on the rooftop restaurant area there, and that is the main area of the restaurant. It's where the bar actually goes. So that we fireproofed the ceiling. The material that's on the steel trusses there is actually a fireproofing material. And then that gets sprayed with another coat of sealer, and then it'll be painted like a dark black probably, or very dark color, and the ductwork and more mechanical systems will go in from there. So other than that, that's where we are right now. I'm not going to go on too much longer. The next time we'll have some pretty impressive pictures, I think, with quite a bit of the brickwork done on the railroad track side, and quite a bit more paving done too. So if any questions on where we're at?
Thank you very much, Jim.
Okay. All right. We'll see you next month.
See you next month. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Bye.
Bye. And so now we'll move down to the city clerk report.
I sent out my extremely lengthy city clerk report and the updated building permit spreadsheet. Once we start to get back rental permits, we start over every year, and you will get a new spreadsheet once we start to get those back. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. The next item I have up for consideration is Maggie's liquor license renewal. Everything was fine.
Yeah, did you receive all the paperwork?
All the paperwork was fine. Police Chief Kelsey did a background check. That was fine. So I recommend that we approve.
You don't think Jerry Zimmerman is kind of a shady character, Chris?
I don't think that he makes the taco pizza enough, but that is a personal preference.
All right. Well, Jerry's a good friend of mine, but I just, his character, I don't know.
We'll just tell him to make the taco pizza more, and we'll
All
work on
right.
that.
All right. I'll
But
pass that on.
Well,
everything.
they do make good cocktails, so we need to approve this. Sorry.
So is there a motion to approve the liquor license renewal?
I'll motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
And second by Casey. Motion by Bobby and second by Casey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. Okay, well, good luck, Chris,
Thank you.
as you move forward here. Okay, we have the city treasurer report, and she gave an updated report with corrected a few typos from the warrants. Are there any additions to the warrants? Hearing none, and if there's no objection to paying the bills will be paid by unanimous consent. Thank you. Lori, did you want to say anything, or? Okay, I don't see Lori now.
She just texted me. She's having problems hearing
Okay.
and may have started over.
She's
Okay.
she's rejoining right now.
Oh, here, connecting to audio. Well,
There she goes. You can ask
Lori,
her.
did you have anything you wanted to add? I'm assuming not, but we can go back to you if you're having audio problems. So now we'll go to the committee reports. And the first one is the community protection, and Chief Kelsey and Sarah O'Sullivan. Chief, do you want to start?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I apologize. I'm traveling, so I am audio only. Hopefully you all received my report to council. I'd just like to highlight a few items. You mentioned farmers market earlier, Mayor, and yes, I think that is going well. People have been very appreciative of the safety measures we're trying to put in place and the monitoring. So I think that's going well. I'd sent out a packet of information earlier on a work session that the University Heights Police Department, along with the NAACP, hosted It was for law enforcement leaders, prosecutors, and NAACP representatives at the local, state, and federal level of each of those organizations. It was not for media consumption. Politicians were not invited. The only elected official that was in attendance was Janet Linus as the county prosecutor. But it was meant to be a work session, not something on the front page. And that went very, very well. We have a good relationship with the NAACP, both locally and at the state level. It was good to build on that, to kind of restate that we have had that relationship and value that relationship, and that we will continue, we have and will continue to work behind the scenes or on the front lines to make changes. I think the police departments in this area have done a very, very good job, in large part due to that partnership. If we failed, it's maybe in that we have not, we've too much, in my opinion, now looking back, and we've too much, in my opinion, acted locally, think globally, act locally. And we haven't necessarily shared some of our successes or farmed those out to other communities and other law enforcement agencies. We are working to rectify that through the Iowa Police Chiefs Association. As Silvia Quezada already commented, as far as other communities and agencies looking to University Heights, that is absolutely true. We have worked with Urbandale here in the last month. Just this week, I was invited by the governor's office to participate in a forum on those type issues, to include anti-racial profiling ordinances, citizens review boards, collection of data and analysis, basically self-reflection and transparency and accountability. So we have made really good steps. I think I was very, very pleased with the work session, and kind of just as a highlight coming out of that, we signed a memorandum of understanding on duty to intercede. I would like to think that my officers and the other officers locally would have done that anyway, but now it's no longer a question of me thinking that I have good stand-up officers. This is now a requirement, and it's a formal and binding memorandum of understanding that all local agencies signed. That is in the packet, and I would ask the council, I as police chief signed it for our agency, but I would ask the council formally recognize it and approve that commitment or restate their commitment to have that be binding also.
And that's consideration of resolution number 2018. That's ratifying and approving Chief Troy Kelsey's execution of a memorandum of understanding with other law enforcement organization in Johnson County concerning jurisdiction to intervene if unreasonable force is observed. That resolution is before you. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Sarah,
I'll second.
second by Lisa. Discussion?
I'd like to say something, Louise. First of all, I want to commend Chief Kelsey for being so proactive on this, and I was very intrigued. I think it was George Floyd's cousin who contacted him or the group and said that it should be an ordinance that should be considered nationally, and it really gets at the fundamental problem, which is police brutality. So I just think that's great work, and I'm proud to support it tonight.
Thank you, Casey.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
O'Sullivan,
Hi.
carried.
Okay, you can continue, Troy. Thank you.
I'm not going to go item by item this month because I'm not sure how long I'll be able to maintain a connection. But if there are any questions, if you've read through the report and have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I would like to skip down to item number I, property disposal or sale. We are now into the new fiscal year. I have moved forward with, I mean, this is something that we discussed during the budgetary process as far as disposition of vehicles. The 2017 Ford Explorer, that transaction was finalized, and the city of Tifton has paid us for that vehicle. The other two vehicles, and this has already been discussed by council, but the other two vehicles I will now move forward with selling, and likely at this time they will be posted to a government vehicle site. That's the most likely way that those will be disposed of. We also have some property at the police department, 2 firearms that were purchased at some time prior to me, 2 patrol shotguns, and were used. Those are not currently deployed. I have one officer that takes it out because we have them, but it's not equipment that I consider necessary for operations. And I would like to sell each of those. I would have to go through a license, somebody who possesses a federal firearms license, because those are restricted items. I had made preliminary contact with Cedar Valley Outfitters in Marion, and they would be agreeable to purchasing those, and then they would resell them and take a profit for them, I'm sure. But I would like permission to go ahead and move forward with exploring that option. I think between the 2 shotguns, I'm hopeful that, I know it's just pennies, but I'm hopeful that I can add $1,000 to the city's general fund. We also have 2 older bicycles that were used as patrol bicycles. Our bicycles have been updated during the last year and a half. I no longer have a need for at least one of those. Potentially both of them I could dispose of. But again, I'm not sure that I can get much more than $100 or a few $100s for either of the bikes. But I'd like to have permission to go ahead and move forward with disposing of that property, and any income from that sale be deposited into the general fund.
Okay, could I have a simple motion to dispose, for Chief Kelsey to dispose of the firearms and the
I'll motion.
bicycles? That was moved by Bobby. And second?
Second.
Second by Sarah. Okay, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries.
And the last thing that I would comment on is, again, something that it ties into Ordinance 235 that Sylvia brought up. The police department did begin collecting data earlier this year. I had conversation within this last month with Professor Barnum about analyzing that data as part of this normal cycle that he employs with the Iowa City Police Department. He's more than willing to do that. We also had a discussion where this would only be a partial data set this first year, and that as far as any fees that we might pay for that year's analysis, if that partial data set might be treated somehow differently as far as actual billing. Professor Barnum agreed to draft a memorandum of understanding so that we can kind of work out those details. Once I receive that, and Chris and I, Professor Barnum and I, work through that so that we're on the same page, I will then forward it to Steve Ballard to make sure that it meets the city's needs. I had communication today with Councilor Moore, who this was not known to me because I wasn't around when the process happened, but she said that council actually had a similar discussion as far as that partial year's data, and first report to council would be a full year of data and meaningful data. So regardless, we're collecting the data, it will be analyzed, but I think, mirroring what council wished done with that data. So that's all I have. If there are any questions about anything that's in my report or anything else that is happening, I'll be glad to answer them either now or in future conversations.
Any questions for Chief now? Okay, thanks again, Chief, for traveling and talking to us.
All right, thank you. It was good to get out of town for a week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If we'll go ahead and go to streets and sidewalks. Josiah, you sent a report. Would you like to talk now? I don't see Doug yet. Um,
Yeah,
would you like
can
to
everybody
give
hear
a
me?
report? Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
You
Yes.
bet.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if you heard that, Josiah, but yes, we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Now, when
I
you're
can't.
talking,
I'm having trouble hearing you guys now.
oh, okay. Can you hear us now? I'm going to keep talking nonsense a little bit. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can.
Okay,
Sorry.
very good.
Okay, yeah, so let me pull up my report here. I'll go through the items briefly and feel free to ask questions. The first one's Olive Court construction. So the big news is that the permeable pavers, the installation of those got back underway yesterday. And I'd say maybe 85% of them were installed today. The contractor had indicated they'd need through Wednesday to get that done. So hopefully the weather allows them to get back in tomorrow and finish that up. So once they're done, essentially, we're down to just a few things on that project, like basically bringing in the topsoil, obviously, to fill in those areas between the street and the new sidewalks, placing sod, putting up some signs, and then eventually planting some trees, although I expect the tree planting will be a little bit later once the weather's more suited for that. And the other thing that is planned for next week, and this is part of the memorandum of understanding, I think, that University Heights and Iowa City agreed upon to share some costs with this, but the Iowa City crews will be on site next week. Their own crews are going to be doing some work to finish out the tops of the sanitary manholes in the street. So that should be happening. The project is supposed to be substantially complete on August 7th. As I noted in the report, they've got about 3 to 4 weeks left. Like I said, the planting of the trees will probably be after that. Any questions from anybody on the Olive Court construction? Okay. I had correspondence today with LL Pelling on coming back to finish up the pavement markings that they started in May. I'm still waiting for a schedule, but that's still on their agenda. The concrete panel replacements on Melrose and Courier Avenue. I've also talked to BWC and All American Concrete because they were issued those as an addendum to the Olive Court project. Again, both of those are expected to happen here in the next month or so. We're looking at asphalt work at the intersection of Mahaska and Oakcrest. And so we had looked at that with some asphalt companies and realized that touches the sidewalk curb ramps as well, which are not in compliance. So we're revising those drawings to also replace those. And that's part of your requirements for ADA compliance is if you repair a street and you touch something like that and it touches the curb ramps, you have to update them as well. Again, based on their schedule, I'm still anticipating that can happen this summer. So the next big street project for next year is the Golf View Drive parking area and drainage improvements. That's still on track to be designed later this year, bid in the winter, and construction starting next spring. We have not started design work for that yet, and again, the first thing that you'll see is surveyors out on site getting survey of the existing conditions. Verizon Wireless, this is a follow-up to the small cell application that was received. So I've been in contact with them to issue their permit for that work. One of the things I was trying to find out was schedule, and what they provided was that there's going to be 2 sites, Cozier and Oakcrest, that they're targeting for the month of January 2021. And the other 2, Grand Avenue and Highland, they have that targeted for the month of January 2022, following year. And finally, just an update on your MS4 stormwater permit. That's your permit from the DNR to have a storm sewer system. Part of that permit is to inspect a portion of the storm sewer every year. It's on a rotating basis. And so this year we're back to the Melrose storm sewer system. And the second item there is that it's been a while, but in the past we've done a survey where we take a look at all the stormwater intakes and then see which ones still have the no dumping drains to river stickers on them. They wear out or fall off over the years. And so we'll get a new round of that going this year. That's all I have to report.
Any questions for Josiah?
I've got a question, Luis. The manhole on Melrose that's over by our small commercial district that's had a lot of trouble. Is that something that is going to be done with part of the Gulf View improvements, Josiah, or what's the status of that? Because I know that I always have to kind of go around it a little bit because it's a bit of a hole right now.
That's the one right by the vacant lot, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. That repair is supposed to happen soon. We issued an addendum to our Olive Court contractors who are doing the paving.
Okay.
And so they're going to take it out and patch it, replace those concrete panels.
And I read your report, but I'm a little confused. What was it that you said was they're going to be doing on Kozer and Oakcrest and Mahaska? Who's proposing that to happen next year or the year after that?
That's in our current budget. We have money targeted for replacement of arterial panels that fall apart, like the one on Melrose. So that's where that's from. And then we have items for replacement of poor panels on local streets. So everything that's basically not Melrose and not Sunset. And so there's concrete panels that basically have fallen apart over this last winter at the intersection of Kozer and Highland.
And that's on the sidewalk?
No, in the street itself.
Concrete panels in the street?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yep, and so some of those are being replaced. Those were not in great shape, but after this winter, they really blew apart. You can see some of the rebar in one or two spots.
Well, the reason I wondered is because there's a segment of Kozer that doesn't have any curbs, and I think we've talked about it before. And if you know the strategic plan has or the comprehensive plan has a plan for when streets get replaced and when what sidewalks have priority. But I was thinking on that Kozer segment, it needs a lot of work, and I wondered if we're not kind of throwing good money after bad if we just kind of fix it and we're actually going to do something more substantial a little bit further down the pike. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to make sure we're talking about the same thing, the location I'm talking about is not within that portion of Kozer.
Okay, all right.
This is west of Sunset Street. I'm sorry about that. Kozer and Highland actually have two intersections now that I think about it. So this is the one west of Sunset. So
okay.
it is not within that section.
What I'm talking about is east of Sunset.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so you need more input from us as to what streets and what sidewalks should take priority. Is that pretty much what you're thinking?
Well, on that section of Kozer that you mentioned, that's correct. It would need a lot of work. It would essentially need to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
Similar to the Olive Court project. We've looked at it over a number of years. There's no easy way to just retrofit that street because of how flat it is and how things drain and the number of trees there. So yeah, that's not a straightforward, easy
And I was wondering about sidewalks, and you know, sidewalks are pretty politically volatile. I think you know, if the community doesn't see a need for a particular sidewalk, they won't support it. But you know, if you have a side, you know, if you've got the right of way, and it turns out that we've got the right of way pretty much anywhere we want, you know, it's already there. But my thought is that the sidewalks they've recommended in the comprehensive plan, they're not particularly strategic. Have you had the same feeling on it?
You know, I guess when you talk about sidewalks, the document I have saved that I've gone back to is the one that the MPO JC did a number of years back, where they looked at which streets do and don't have sidewalks.
And there are a lot of streets
Some
that
of their
don't.
recommendations.
I see. Can you email me that MPO?
I can, yep.
That'd be great. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Josiah? Josiah, I wanted also, I don't have a question for Josiah, but I see Doug Swales isn't here yet, and I want to say that I've been working with Doug on tree removals in the city right away that need to be removed because they're dangerous or totally dead. And there's 5 trees, and with the help of David Bowes, who's chair of the tree board, David was able to obtain estimates for removal of these trees. And I met with the tree guy. There was only one bid. He put out 5 bids to 5 different companies, and only one company responded. And I found out why today in talking to the arborist at the tree guys. He said all the tree people are swamped, and I'm 13 weeks out, but I have saved space to remove these trees. And so we only received one bid, and we're still getting bids, but we have $7,000 in the budget for things like this in the city right away to remove. And so when the final number comes in, we'll go ahead, since it's a budgeted item, and remove those trees from the city right away. There's 5 of them. And if you want more detail, you can let me know and I can explain that further. So I wanted to let you know that. So if there's not any more questions, we'll go on to what's the next one? Building, zoning, and sanitation. Oh no, consideration of pay application number 2 for the 2020 Olive Court Improvements Project. Now, we did that under the warrants, correct, Josiah?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so that's taken care of. That was listed there, and
yeah, the only follow-up I'd say to that is, you know, again, we have a funding agreement with Iowa City to share costs, and also with Jeff Hendrickson, and they both sent in their portion of their costs from the first pay app.
Oh, good.
2 months ago. So I'll send a similar invoice to both Jeff and the city of Iowa City this week as well.
So we don't need to consider this, Steve, then, or should we? We should probably do it just for consideration of pay application number 2. I mean, it was, you know, listed in the warrants, but somehow I think we should vote on this. Let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so consideration of pay application number 2 for the 2020 Olive Court Improvement Project. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Bobby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sarah. Okay, discussion. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Sullivan,
No, wait a minute. Is it consideration? It's just consideration. There's no resolution. Okay, all in favor,
Never
say
mind.
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Carried. Okay, Is that everything, Josiah?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good job on Olive Court. Thank you. Building, zoning, and sanitation. Casey, did you want to talk about anything here?
Yeah, as you might guess, Louise, I do want to talk about something. I am angling for a second meeting this month in 2 weeks to firm up our priorities and to get them in synchrony with the comprehensive plan and the visioning process that Sarah participated in. As it turns out, I've been reviewing the comprehensive plan, and it relies heavily on that visioning process. So it's not like we have to coordinate those two things. But things like the capital improvements, I mean, I think that's a matter of setting priorities in and of itself, because I'm concerned about a number of things in the comprehensive plan and what they've got going there. But they also say that they want a 5-year budget, and they want a comprehensive or a capital improvements budget that I don't know if we've got a capital improvements budget, but it's something that we can use. And we never seem to, I think it was Sylvia who said we've been waiting 12 months or whatever for the to pass the ordinance 234. Is that the number? Yeah, and I know you're working all the time, and I know I'm retired, and so I've got a little bit more time certainly than Bobby with his 1,500 kids, and everybody else. But I don't think that 2 meetings this month is too many, and I think we can stand to get a lot accomplished and set some priorities for the rest of the year.
When
So
you say
so
that,
I'm
you're
angry
talking
about-
about, I'm sorry, Casey, to interrupt you. Can I say something now? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Are you talking specifically about the goal setting session? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, that's part of it.
Part of it? I
Well,
just
the
don't
other part of it is, doesn't the goal setting session kind of have something to do with the comprehensive plan and the visioning statements? And don't we kind of want to know what we want to accomplish during our term? Those are the things that I'm citing now. Is that clear or no?
Well, it's not real clear to me, but I want to make it more clear. And I want to tell you, if I can, I want to tell you some of my thoughts, since we haven't talked about the goal setting session and my thought was, instead of having a meeting, and I know you want to do more than just that at the meeting, but I thought we could all monthly talk about what we're working on, and also what we're assigning to personally what we want to take on, which projects we want to take on. And for example, we set aside a little bit of time, 15 minutes every month, and talk about where we are with certain projects that we want to do. I mean,
Yeah, I don't, my own opinion, I know we disagree on this, Louise, but I don't think that's adequate. For example, let's take the Swisher track. The Swisher track, I think it's relatively easy to put a handicap accessible trail in there where you can run strollers and wheelchairs, and I can enjoy that area myself. But then, in order to, if we actually want to get a trail from there over to the university's trail and across that university land and in the ravine and whatnot, in terms of expense and everything else, that's going to be in political pushback. That's going to be a much tougher segment, and it may not pass muster. But I don't think the relatively easy part of the trail should be held up indefinitely while we wait until we have the funds to cover that. The one way of putting this is, perfect is the enemy of excellent. And I think if we're trying to be too perfect instead of breaking up these things in component parts, you know, we're not going to make the kind of progress we want to make. And I think there's enough here to constitute having another meeting. If nobody wants another meeting, I'm okay with that. But I think that we're going to be slogging along, and we'll accomplish a whole lot less than if we did have the meeting and be more focused.
I want to respond to that, Casey, if I can.
Go ahead.
Like the Swisher track, now I don't have the goals right in front of me, but I propose that we hire a landscape architect and we go through this process and get public input and work towards that. And it was going to take, you know, till next, you know, through next summer. And I've already been working on that. And so that was written out in a goal that, because I don't think everybody is in agreement on everything. And
I agree.
don't know if we know the right way to do it. You know,
and
we
that's
need an
why
expert.
we would need a meet. Excuse me, Fernando. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. What you want
No,
to say?
go ahead, Casey.
You know, I think that's another reason why this meeting would be handy, so we can kind of hash it out and find out what how everybody feels about it.
But nobody's an expert on how to build a trail. I want to bring an expert in and go through a process. And that was how the goal was set up in my mind.
That's fine, but it's really two goals. One's a hard one and one's an easy one. And if we go for the hard one, we'll never get the easy one done.
I want to get it all done. I want to get it all done.
What's all? You know, I mean, and does the community buy into it?
I want to, and then we can apply for grants. This person can help us apply for grants. And I mean, is anybody an expert here on how the process of building a trail? And, you know, and what are the rules?
We don't have to be an expert, and we're going to need an expert. But when we have motel taxes, a lot of that is for tourist amenities. And again in that comprehensive plan, the people of University Heights says it's very difficult to meet my neighbors. And I tell you, I go for a walk every day in University Heights, and that's the best way I can think of to meet the neighbors and address the primary concern that came up again and again in University Heights.
Well, I'm social distancing, so I'm not going to be wanting to, you know, unless I'm wearing a mask and I'm out, but I'm not getting closer than 6 feet to my neighbors. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, you don't have to be closer than 6 feet when you're taking a walk. I never have.
I understand, but I'm just saying it's just not like it used to be. When I go out and see.
Exactly. If we had the trail and the Swisher track, that would be the kind of amenity that people move to University Heights for. I mean, it's not specifically the only reason you'd move to University Heights, but if it was between two communities and we had that kind of amenity, I think we'd be more successful. The other thing is, in the comprehensive plan, they talk about putting in sidewalks on Monroe, for example. And, you know, I'm not seeing that as a strategic move. I think the sidewalks should be partly recreational, but partly to get kids to school. And so the sidewalk configuration would be different from the way it's stated in the comprehensive plan. But anyway, that's all I want to say about that, and I'll let everybody figure out whether they want another meeting or not. The other thing I wanted to say was that the house on Gulfview, where it looked like they were going to pave probably 80% of the front yard, Brian was on that, and his intervention was both effective and timely. And they've stopped construction on that, and I think they realized that they're limited to 30%, and we had a couple of comments from the neighbors. But the point is that we have a really good system with Brian and Terry and their inspections, and it's working in University Heights. And I think for the rest of my comments, you can just refer to my report.
Thank you, Casey. Anyone else like to comment?
I'm thinking through what Casey said. I mean, I feel like there's value in, as much as I don't want to do another meeting, there's value in keeping the ball rolling. I mean, maybe it's just me, and I guess I'm trying to do things on, we'll hear about it in my report, but there's value in, assigning champions and making sure we're keeping the ball rolling, I guess, if that's kind of the main idea, Casey, I don't know. So I can appreciate that. I don't necessarily want to meet another time, but I'm also, I care about University Heights and kind of want to. So I don't know. I guess I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, I look at those goals and I mean, it's fairly obvious who needs to be doing what. And I mean, you and I talked about it earlier today. You kind of get together and talk about it. I think it's more efficient, or it certainly has been for me in the past, than having a meeting. So I'm not in favor of a meeting. I would say that.
Are we able, I'm just wondering, like, even by just making sure there's a name by everyone, I mean, can we do
Right.
that via email, or is that breaking the open meetings law if we try to at least just, because I know not all of them have a champion. So I mean, just the minimum assign a champion.
Nor do they have a time frame, Sarah.
Right.
Right.
And Lisa said, she said getting together, and I think a Zoom meeting can save us a tremendous amount of time of, where the council stands and what they want to have happen. Then if we, eventually we're going to have a lot of homework anyway, but having some, a meeting that focuses this a little bit is going to save us a lot of time down the pike, I think.
I just think it's going to be another, let's get together and talk. It's, you want to develop a 5-year budget. Who's that? It's not me. It's Bobby.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you want to work with Casey, I think you should work with Casey. If you want to work with Casey and then bring Sarah in, talk with her a little bit about it, I think you can do that. I really don't feel like having another meeting on this, not to mention the fact that we have things on here that are goals, and we have things on here that are just things that need to be done. So.
Is it because you don't like us, Lisa?
I just have not seen that we've been super efficient as it is. And I know what I need to do, and I'll do it. And if somebody wants to reach out to me, and like Bobby, with his down payment assistance program, I don't see that spending a lot of time hashing this through in a meeting is productive.
Well,
we did talk about it earlier. I mean, that was my opinion. And
let me give you one more example. I think that if we're being strategic, we should invest in the neighborhoods such as yours that have the older housing and the more modest quality housing. And that we should not be putting sidewalks on Monroe when everybody's perfectly comfortable using the street, and we can put in lanes that allow, pedestrian walkways or bicycle ways. And that's the kind of thing I think we need to talk about. And I'll bet that's the first you've heard about that.
Well, actually, no. I mean, we talked about having Josiah develop a streets plan. Let's prioritize what streets we need to do, and let's do the sidewalks along with them and do the entire length of sidewalk.
Yeah, and the thing is that if,
There it
well,
is.
okay.
It's,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we've got Bobby's not sure. Lisa's opposed. I'm not sure where Sarah is on this. What do you think, Sarah?
I'm not opposed to a meeting.
Not opposed.
I think we could keep it brief and just, if the goal, to me, if the goal is to have a champion and timeline, assign champions and timelines to each of those goals.
Well, let's do it right now. We have developed capital improvement plan.
I'd be happy to be a champion on that.
Yeah. I'm also fine with doing it right now because we're as far as meetings go, we're doing pretty good for time. So
we're good.
So there it is. I mean, work something, just,
I can bring it
I would
up.
say work something out. And
Well, do you want to start going through it right now, Lisa? That's what I hear Bobby saying, right, Bobby?
I'm fine with that.
Some
Yeah.
of it now. I mean, it's 8:20. I mean, we can spend 15, 20 minutes going through some of the champions and
Timeline?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Fine with it.
Lisa, you have it right in front of you.
I do. Develop capital improvement plan, work with the city engineer to prioritize street improvement projects and sidewalk improvement projects. The plan that we had talked about was having a, just like what I said, you have a street improvement project and you're gonna do the sidewalks at the same time so that the entire sidewalk is being done and you're not mishmashing little panels here and there, which don't really solve any of our problems.
Fine, I would volunteer to be the champion on that. And the
And I would say the
timeline,
best way to do it would be if, I don't know, if Bobby wants to work on it and the two of you work on it, you get with Bobby, you come up with something, run it by me. I mean, I just think that is far more efficient. That's how we did Ordinance 235 with Nick, so.
If you
So
want
we're going to put Casey as the champion on that one.
and I'll work with, Bobby, are you interested in working with me on that?
yeah, I mean, it'll certainly relate financially. So I would say, let's
Okay.
collaborate and that, but you can kind of be the champion as far as,
What do you think in terms of timelines?
I mean, my gut thought is, it's a big project, right? But it involves a lot of people. But by the end of the
And
year,
it's gonna involve Josiah, and Josiah is not just
right?
readily available.
I don't know. I guess I don't really have a frame of reference, but
Well, let's say 3 months.
sure. I think that's fine. We can start there and try for that.
Wow, Casey, you're right in there. Okay.
Got nothing to do. He's retired.
That's right. And I know I'm making a nuisance out of myself, but I'd like to get this nailed down.
Okay.
What about your 5-year budget, which is called for in the comprehensive plan? And
Yeah.
go ahead. Let Lisa tell us what else is on that goal setting session.
Well, the next thing on the list is develop a consistent process for enforcement of rental housing ordinances, and Sarah was listed as the champion. I don't know why.
Probably because it was enforcement related, and I'm fine being
Okay.
Casey. I'll probably, talk to you a lot about that one just around the. And I think for me, it could be that a lot of those, it's not as if none of that stuff is in place, but maybe as much for my understanding is understanding like what the enforcement process looks like. And I was actually surprised that this fell pretty high on the list. So that told me it is important to this council, and I agree.
It's been very important to the community. I mean, that's what I have heard from people.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll keep that.
Just clarify that for me, because I know we've done a lot of work with the forms and simplifying the forms. What do you think the enforcement means, Sarah? Or is that too broad a question? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I think to me it's so we've got ordinances, right, around rental houses and non-rental houses, and it's like if somebody's against an ordinance, what's the repercussion there? Like whose responsibility is it to talk with them and whatever the repercussions are? What is that enforcement? How are we enforcing our ordinances around housing and rentals? So
fair enough. Well,
I would say that. Sorry.
No,
I'd be happy to be a resource on that then.
I think so.
So we have. I'm sorry, Casey. Everything is just.
I think Brian would be a good resource as well. So between the three of us, we ought to get something done. And what are you thinking on time frame?
Can we say within 6 months?
Say again?
Within 6 months.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner, but.
Sounds great. I'm
And
sorry.
I would say, if I could get this out, that when I think of enforcement, what I'm thinking of is a particular house that if I don't complain about it or some resident doesn't complain about it, it just slips through the cracks. So what we have done in the past is, with a previous rental inspector, was council member, I was the second council member, and the rental inspector actually drove around and surveyed all the houses just to see what was going on. I'm not saying you need to do that, but somebody needs to be noticing things and not just waiting for the 1 year or 2 year or
Yeah,
3
I
year rental
think-
inspection or waiting for a complaint.
I think it's the kind of the idea that people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. I mean, that's kind of to a certain extent, that's kind of reality, unfortunately. But so just a consistent schedule of observation, or whatever you want to call it, so that we're not relying on citizens to complain. That's the only time anything gets checked, is kind of what you're saying, Lisa.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, though has been our go-to arrangement. I mean, we're, like this house on Gulfview with all this, trying to put the cement in the front yard. I got 2 calls on that, and that's how I was alerted to it. So I wouldn't be too harsh on neighbors, neighbor complaints, and it's kind of a management by exception, I think. But anyway, Sarah, if you want to take that on and 6 month timeline, and use me and Brian as resources, I'd be fine with that. And obviously Steve as a resource. Does that sound okay with you, Lisa?
It's fine. I'm not, so let me be clear, I'm not being harsh about neighbors. I'm saying that it shouldn't fall to the neighbors to have to complain. And I don't know if our city clerk wants to be involved at all. I mean, she's been on the contact list, I guess, for a lot of things.
I can tell you that Brian and I have been in multiple text messages and phone calls regarding Gulfview, because in addition to Casey receiving phone calls, I'm getting phone calls and text messages as well. So I would be happy to serve on the committee.
Okay, great.
So it's just, I don't know how many people you need, but
Yeah. What's next on the list, Lisa?
it's the hire a landscape architect for the Swisher.
I'm the champion of that, and I've been working on it, and it's a year. It was until, through next summer, because it had to make up some meetings, and they'd probably have to be Zoom meetings. But I was working the very next day on it, and then a lot of things came on my plate, and I had to push it aside a little bit. But I did make contact, and I will continue with that if that's okay with everyone. And if anyone wants, I could maybe work Doug in that too, or whoever you want me to work with. I can work with somebody with that too.
What I wonder, Louise, is if we could split that into 2 goals, the easy one and the hard one.
I don't see it as easy and hard. I see it as,
if you're going across university land and going over a ravine that's 200 feet long, believe me, that's the hard part. And that it's not necessary that we finish that right away when we can finish. Say again, Lisa?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but how do we do that? I mean, what we have is the Swisher track, and we have,
I don't understand where you're coming from here.
Okay.
So the idea is that disabled people and nature lovers, period, people with strollers, people with wheelchairs can access the Swisher track the same as everybody else in town. That's what I'm talking about.
right.
That's the easy part. Now, if you want to go any further than that, that's the hard part.
Well, I'll bring someone forward and make a presentation and the council can decide.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next thing is establish 5-year budget estimates. That has Bobby written all over it.
Yeah, that'll
And
take
that-
at least
okay.
2 days, 2 or 3 days. Kidding.
You can have it by tomorrow.
And so we give them 5 years to do it. Is that right?
That's what it is, a 5-year budget plan. Takes me
Yeah.
5 years to come up with a budget. I mean, I think it is shortly after the comprehensive plan or the infrastructure plan, whatever you call it. So
You're gonna need that one first.
right, need that one first. So
Capital improvement plan.
capital improvement plan. There you go. That once that's done, then I would say, you know, you need a month at least minimum, you know, or 2, but.
Why don't we go 2 months after that is done? So that'll put us 5 months out.
Right. I like it.
And
Yep.
and I'd be happy to help you on that, Bobby.
Yeah.
Could I?
Yeah, totally.
Great. Okay.
Okay, so this is where we kind of move from a real goal to something that we just need to do. Conduct the seasonal sidewalk clearance check. That sounds like Doug Swales to me. since he's
Sounds
not
like
here.
Lisa to me.
Sounds like Doug Swales is streets and sidewalks.
Sounds like Lisa to me. And Doug. But I think that's the kind of thing, you know, that just walking around and seeing what needs to be done is one of your strengths.
Doug needs something to do.
I mean, Doug's not here, so let's assign it to him.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll
This is
talk
also
about it.
something that, I mean, when you're talking about your rental housing enforcement, I'd say this could be part of that when you're looking at houses. You can also notice this. I'm not saying this is something you do, but these things kind of tie
You
together.
can integrate those and kind of do 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point.
It used to be done yearly in a letter or email was sent out or a hanging tag.
Right.
And then
And I don't know where
fell
we
by
are
the
with
wayside.
hanging tags either.
But somebody would walk around and survey. And it usually was a council member and some volunteers.
Well, Casey's got time for all this.
So,
Well, my sensibilities aren't as refined as the rest of the council.
Yeah, we
so
don't
I
want
I'll
Casey
help
doing
Doug.
that.
I'll
think I'd have
help
to
Doug.
pass on that.
I'll talk to Doug about it, all right? And help him.
Great. What else, Lisa?
There was 2 other things, Bobby. You talked to me about, I mean, one of the things that we talked about quite a bit is the fact that 40% of our housing in University Heights is investor owned, and we'd like to have a little more owner occupant, you know, kind of shift that ratio a little bit. That ratio hasn't changed in 10 years according to the comprehensive plan, but we've grown quite a bit in 10 years, and the number of investment properties and the number of owner occupants is grown along with it.
Mhm.
And so you know, from reading that comprehensive plan, you know, one neighborhood in University Heights, and whatever the hell a neighborhood is, I'm not real sure,
Mhm.
but it's 29% investor owned, and another one is 50% investor owned. And so I think that's something that we should focus on.
Mhm.
And well, you take it from there. You've got the. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, we can talk about that now. Or is that on the agenda for later too? The idea, the down payment.
I don't know.
Yes, it is.
He is under Bobby.
It's under your report.
Well, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to finish this thing?
I'd like to talk about it now because that seems to me to be, you know, a major goal for University Heights and a major concern for you and Lisa and some of the other counselors.
Well, is the council in agreement they want to talk about the housing down payment assistance program now?
Can we finish the list first?
I'd say finish the list, and I think
Let's finish the list, and then and that one is assigned to Bobby on the list, and then he can that way. Is that all right?
Okay,
Good,
so I
good,
hear
Casey.
Yeah, incentivized
Can you
single-family owner-occupied homes is already assigned to Bobby. We have a review city ordinances.
Okay, so what's the next thing on the list after the
Review city ordinances.
review city ordinances?
Mhm.
Oh my, that sounds like an Aegean task.
Uh,
Uh,
I guess I can look at that.
Careful, Louise.
I'll look at that. I know of some things that need to be looked at, I think. So I'll work on that.
So the next thing is update resident guide
Just,
and
just out of curiosity, what kind of time frame are you talking about, Louise?
6 months. You got to give me some time.
I don't think 6 months is going to be enough, but
Oh, I have some things off the top of my head, but
yeah,
All
I
right.
think we have some things in mind, but
do you? Or Lisa, you're going to work on it with me?
well, yeah, I'll work
Okay,
on.
very good. Okay, very good.
So then we have update resident guide, update administrative policy manual.
Well, I had an idea of that because I was thinking about this goal setting session and talking today and hoping the council would hire Mike Haverkamp, who's retired, who seems to have time as Casey does. And you know, our staff is full-time in another position. And I was wondering to entertain the idea of maybe hiring, you know, Mike Haverkamp as a staff person to review the resident guide. And then if he needs to have a question under, that goes under building zoning, he talked to Casey. And then if there's a question about the police, he talked to Sarah. And if there's a question, you know what I mean, and update that.
I think that's a great idea,
I mean, we
Louise.
need to hire some staff to do some work. So I'm thinking that maybe Mike, I know he does a lot of things in retirement, but he could also look at the other thing, which is the
The handbook.
administrative manual, and then bring certain things to each of us. And we have a staff person that can do it. And I haven't talked to Mike about this. I haven't talked to anybody about this. I was just thinking of where can we get some help on some of these things? I mean, and I think paying staff to do some of this work would be a good thing.
And Mike would be great because Mike's been on council and he understands this, so.
I agree.
And I don't hear
Lisa,
anything
make
from
a
him.
note
I
of
just
it.
see a blank screen.
Make a note of it that I agree.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hang on. You're still on mute, but
that's probably good.
Yeah, that's probably where you want to be.
I'm happy to do that. That's fine. That'd be great.
We're very grateful to you, Mike, for taking that on. Thanks very much.
So while you're on, Mike, so I'm going to jump down to the bicycle master plan, it says for some reason, but you know, working toward silver status, you'd be a good one to consult on that. I mean, I know we can't attain it immediately, but.
Sure. I think looking at some of the things from that, the transportation grant for 2021, is it 2021 or 2022, where we talked about doing the Melrose Lane updates. That would go a long way toward it. I think there are some things that Troy has done with the police that would be good outreach that we can, there's a lot of things going on that
I think that the
could push us
capital,
up to silver status.
And
I think the capital improvement plan would also kind of intersect with that, Mike. So we want to talk
Mike,
together.
you helped me before when you were on city council in attending those regional trail and bicycle committees. And I can catch you up to date on some of the things that they're suggesting for University Heights before we get the Melrose Streetscape in. And because I need somebody to, I mean, Josiah, I can discuss with Josiah and you maybe about some of those things. And we can, maybe you can help work some of those out. Since you're an avid bicyclist. And I guess he's going away for the weekend to bike too. So there you go.
There you go.
Just like Troy. So, okay, great. So council agrees that we hire you to do the work on those things and contact us. Okay, very good. Thank you. And was there anything else, Lisa?
Mike?
Well, so we have evaluate restructuring bond administration, which I'm guessing is Bobby and Casey
Yeah, I can take that one. That's just
or
it might
whatever.
be, yeah. I'll
And
take
then, yeah, then we have make front door to City Hall handicap accessible, which by law it already is. So
It is. The very next day after the meeting, I contacted Kevin Munson, who's the architect for OUP, and he also talked with Doug Swales.
okay.
And what happened is, yes, just because it doesn't have a push button doesn't mean it's not ADA compliant. It is ADA compliant. It's just an option. It's not a requirement to be ADA. So that's just something we can consider if we want the push button. And I think Doug should probably follow up with that because there are many different options with the push button. It's not like all one push button. There's like a push button that's battery operated. There's a push button that isn't, and there's different ways to do it. And I think we should have Doug look into that. But just so everyone knows, the OUP is handicap accessible.
Very good.
Not required to have the push button to be handicap accessible. It's an option.
There is one thing I wonder, and this is speculative, and I know that's a dangerous thing to do at a meeting, but that's what we're doing right now in a way. But I've noticed there's nothing in our goal setting about energy efficiency. And, and I think Lisa mentioned it a meeting or two ago about the importance to provide energy efficiency to the old houses. And
I never mentioned that.
say you never mentioned it?
I never mentioned that.
I thought it was you, but maybe it was somebody else. I don't know.
I think it was you.
If you're interested, Lisa, in improving the housing stock, this is certainly one way to do it, is to provide some subsidy, a matching amount of some kind. And Bobby can consider this in the budget. But in terms of improving our housing stock, and particularly, the smaller, older houses, energy efficiency audit, and then improvements to the house along those lines, I think it's something we ought to consider. And I think it's something that the people of University Heights would be on board with. I think they'd see it as a very positive thing to be a lot more energy efficient than we are right now. And I think that's one way of doing it. And I think it addresses some of your concerns about the housing stock.
Well, somebody that owns an old house, there are 1,000 things on my list ahead of that, but
Somebody
I'm just gonna make that joke. So the last, yeah,
So you don't care about energy efficiency, Lisa?
well, I think I've done what I can do, but I mean, I'm not sure about
I'd be happy-
subsidizing
I'd
it.
be happy
I'm not
to,
sure about, specifically what you have in mind. I think
I'd be happy to
efficiency
be a
is important,
champion.
but
I'd
I
be
don't
happy-
want to add something that seems like it might be some part of something else here.
I wonder how the other counselors feel about it. And if they don't think that we can improve the housing stock, which has been a ongoing concern of this council, and I think it's much more important than whether or not the trash barrels are open because there's a little bit more trash in them, then we ought to focus on that rather than some of the other stuff we've been doing. But if the other counselors don't think it's a particularly important goal, then I want to know that, and I can just relax and have another cup of iced decaf.
Well, I was just trying to go down this list of goals that we identified and get through it so we can get on with.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do, but I'm suggesting that that list is not as comprehensive as it should be. And
No,
this is.
I would say there are things on it that shouldn't be on and things that aren't on it. So yeah, I can agree with that.
Uh-huh.
So here we are on one that investigate opening City Hall for private use. City Hall's closed right now. It is open for private events, so I'm not sure what the point of this is. And I think it's listed as number 13 out of
17.
Well, I don't even think we should be using it for private events right now. I think
Right.
the city hall, the city offices are closed unless there's some special meeting that, you know, as chief has done or something, because it totally needs to be sanitized afterwards. And there's
We're not ready
a
to
lot of
pay
work in
somebody
it.
to
And
do
I don't see having, the way the situation is now, I don't see having meeting there until maybe the first of the year. I don't even know then. We'll have to see, but I don't see anything. So I don't see that as something to tackle right now because of the conditions we're in right now. But anyway, that's what I'm saying about it. So it looks like you've covered everything, right? And so we've got, and I think we should take some time and kind of give updates when we have them at every meeting.
Yeah.
You know, if there's some update to report.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, we'll put it as a line on an agenda item so people can give updates when they have them. Okay?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so Bobby, everybody's anxious to discuss the Housing Down Payment Assistance Program. And you sent around something which I found very interesting. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, so I guess it's very, very, very preliminary right now, but it was an important thing, at least on the list, important for me, I think, and everyone else, it seemed like. But I reached out to, I think Karen at the ECI COGS or whatever that is, and then also Iowa League of Cities. Steve Ballard gave me some contacts there or something, but everyone actually thought it was a really great idea to develop a program like this where the city comes up with funds to assist in the down payment of a house for a home buyer. So the idea is, at a very high level, the idea is we give money, we got to figure out all the details on this, but we give money to a home buyer and they agree that that home will be owner occupied for a set number of years or time. And so that's the idea, with the intent to encourage owner occupied houses. And so I sent out and just draft to a few of you. And so just as a starting point, I guess, any comments on the idea or questions on the idea as it sits, or as a theory?
I do.
Yeah, I support the idea. And I mean, obviously the details have to be hashed out and have make sure we've got the money to support it. But I think it's a good investment, you know, making an investment in our city.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, you know, everyone, we got to be careful about spending money before we, that we don't have, but I think we're in a pretty good financial place to do this with the expected revenues in the next few years. So it seems like there'll be a pool of dollars to use, but we got to figure out how much, but that's part of the program.
Yeah.
How did you figure out the minimum house? I mean, you know, I know you're putting out.
Yeah. So what I did, there was actually, I think Karen pointed me to a couple other examples of other communities that are doing this. and I done research on my own and found some other ones. But what I did was kind of compiled, because every community has their goals in wanting to do this. And so I compiled kind of, I thought all the different aspects that people were factoring in. And so the $350,000 I think was, the idea is you're targeting homes that could be enticing to a rental owner, to an investor, right? And and I could do more math to make sure, but over $350,000, the home becomes, it's going to have to be a 4-bedroom house for that to make sense as a rental, right? So most of the rentals that we have are under 4 bedrooms, right? So the idea was targeting houses that would be rental properties or good rental property targets, and converting those, or making those into owner occupied properties. That was the idea, I guess. But and all of this is subject to be refined, of course, but before a proposal or whatever. But
Bobby, I'm generally in favor of the idea. But it occurred to me, I was, again, I refer to the comprehensive plan that we've got coming up. But they said that depending on what part of University Heights you're in, the housing prices range from an average in a particular area at $275,000 up to like $369,000. I can't remember what the numbers were exactly. But I think that this program should be focused in those areas where we're sitting with 50% investment properties rather than 29% investment properties. And I think we should focus on
yeah. How does the rest of the council?
We need to be strategic about where we place the money. And I'm thinking if houses, if it's at houses under $300,000, I don't know if that's necessarily a first-time home buyer, but I think it needs to be focused in those areas where we got a preponderance of rental properties rather than the areas that are,
So limiting it more to geographic area. What does the rest of the council? I like that idea personally. I mean, the argument to that is, well, just because University Heights is always going to be attractive to renters theoretically. The argument to that is, well, as soon as you start killing the rentals here, they're just going to move to over here, right? Because of proximity. But what do you guys think about that? I think I agree. Targeting specific areas where the majority are rentals. What do you guys think?
But would that mean only offering it to certain parts of town? I don't know if I like that. Where
I think that would be.
I think it would be more like saying houses under $300,000 would probably get at some of the, without, it could be anywhere in University Heights, but as long as the houses are under $300,000, then we get at the lower end that really need improvement in owner occupieds.
Yeah. I like having that maximum housing price. Maybe lowering it. I think Bobby's initial was 350. So you're thinking maybe lower it a little bit, and that'll target more of the houses that we want to see this.
Yeah. My goal, my thought, I think I just pulled up Zillow, and there was one of the houses there was 350, and I don't know if it had a rental permit or not currently, but that was like one of the houses. I think it was over on the east side of University Heights, and so I think that was kind of without putting too much extra time and thought into it. But so Sarah, you're thinking against limiting it to, let's say we did on these 5 streets or whatever it is, like where the primary rentals are, like the idea.
I don't know. Initially, I don't like that so much. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I would say let's offer it for anywhere geographically in the city. But I think having a housing price is good to target and maybe that effectively targets the area.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm in favor of making it only available to certain streets.
Okay.
I think that would be hard to administer. But if we did it on a price basis, I think we kind of get at the areas that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair.
One comment, Bobby, I have that I'm thinking about it. I don't think I mentioned to you, but you kind of, the way you laid it out is there would be, you know, the city would contribute X if the house, you know, was went from owner occupied, and it would contribute a different amount if it was currently had a rental permit and basically was moving to owner occupied. But thinking about it, I kind of feel like maybe they should be the same, because effectively, you know, it's the same benefit, right? Whether we turn a rental into an owner occupied as keeping an owner occupied. So
Yeah, I
don't know what your thought process
no,
was.
I put that's a good observation. I put that in there. I put both of those in there because I think that was one of the things that I had seen. You know, that some people did this for certain properties and this for certain properties. But, you know, the main question I think at the end of the day is, or the thing we're trying to do is basically increase the number of owner occupied houses, right? And so my thought was, well, that would be a way to do it. But, you know, I also can, you know, I see what you're saying. It makes sense. What does anyone else think about it?
Well, I think you have a consensus of council wants to continue to work with this.
Right.
Did you need other things answered at this time?
I don't know. I guess I think if you have any thoughts on it, or, you know, anything else, just shoot me an email. Like, is that okay to do? Just on an individual basis, shoot me an email, and as I'm kind of putting together a formal proposal or an idea, I guess the plan is to put together a more polished thing and then run it by, you know, the ECI cog, and they can kind of tell me, you know, how feasible it is or whatever, and then ultimately bring it by Steve, and he can give it the legal blessing and whatnot. But there's, you know, we got to figure out if there's certain banks we want to limit to one bank, or if we want to say any bank, or there's things like that where, you know, we can change, or we get to decide basically. I mean, if we want to support local bank like Hills or something, or if we want to open it up to all banks. And if you have any feedback, whatever, I guess give me some thoughts.
There are a couple of programs that have been proposed last council and the council previous to that one. I may have those documents and I can send them just so you can look at them and see if there's anything
you
can glean from them. But yeah.
And you know, I know it's hard to do, but I think you ought to try to put some numbers to this. I mean, do we want to have a fund of $100,000 and the subsidy be 2,500, just enough to make a difference to somebody, you know?
Yeah,
and
that's great.
And a thought on where would the money come from? You know, just kind of a general thought about it. And I think I do better with you know, a few numbers in front of me, and I'll react to those numbers, you know.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
I'd say put that right in there, and it wouldn't be gospel necessarily, but you know, it'd be something for us to react to.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I have been speaking to Steve. Gave me a recommendation to talk to realtors and some other, even mortgage lenders, some people, to say, because, you know, what's going to be a number that's enticing to people? Because if it's, you know, $50, well, no one's going to mess with it because it's, you know, it's a headache, right? But if it's $5,000, okay, they will probably consider that. And so we want to make it a number that people will accept or bite because it's a worthwhile program. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. But yeah, so I'm trying to, you know, have some more conversations and get some input on that. But, you know, but yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, hopefully I'll have all the answers for a lot of those, or the proposal for all those at another meeting, but that's the general idea. So.
Well, can I ask you another finance question?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, so maybe I should ask you this in private, but I mean, we've got a lot of CDs, and they're earning, it's like 1.5%, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the bond on the Swisher track that we've paid off about $50,000. And I want to say that bond the interest rate on it is quite a bit higher than what we're earning on CDs. And I'm wondering if there's any restriction as to how fast we can pay off that bond, or rather than, if we've got a $21,000 CD making a 1.5%, and by paying off, a part of the bond, we're making, twice that.
Right.
If there's something along those lines that we can do, and I think that if you're looking into bond financing, maybe we could check that out.
Well, the short answer is I don't know without calling the bonding people what that is, but I think that's a part of it.
I'll shoot you. Steve Cool gave me an email where he gave the amortization of all the bonds and the interest rates, and that'd be handy for you to know, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly in favor of restructuring debt if it makes sense to lower our interest payments. That's a no-brainer in the finance world for sure. While I'm on that, and I guess it sounds like we're moving on from the down payment assistance program, but I don't know what the Robert's rules process is here, but I don't know if we need to vote on it, whatever, but basically we need to move some money around from one bank account to another in order to pay the bills. And so do we need to have an approval for that or anything? Or do we just?
No, what Steve Cool had suggested was pulling the money out of the CD money for the Olive Court houses and pushing, and then refunding it in September, October when the taxes come back in. So I don't, Steve Ballard, do you think we need to say that? I mean, we can just move the money and then return it back. That's what Steve Cool recommended, to cover these costs of the, when we had, we didn't bond for the Olive Court construction, and we were moving money around. Lori, did you want to comment on it? Or, I mean, do we need to,
No, we're not out of money. We just need to.
We just moved it.
Our big property tax payments until September, October, and it's just temporarily using the money that we have saved.
Yeah.
You're addressing a cash flow issue. It's normal.
I guess my question is, do we need to vote on anything to move it, or can Lori just do that as needed?
From my standpoint, Lori can just do it. Lori does a great job of accounting for everything and showing where everything moves from and back. And so that's my only issue for her, frankly, is so that everybody knows where money's coming from and going to and going back. That's all shown in the reports that the council receives every month. So I don't think you need to take a vote to move something from one fund to one account to another.
You were copied on this too, Steve, right? So yeah, you're aware of it.
Very good.
Yeah, and Lori's a stickler for counting for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is very good, Lori. You do a nice job.
I noticed Lori sent me that report at 3:30 in the morning, and I wondered if she stayed up all night doing the damn thing.
I did, yes. It's been a busy week at my house, and
Well, thank you very much, Lori.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't want to do that, make a habit of that, but apparently I'm making a habit out of it, so.
Oh, jeez. Well, the thing I wondered about our bond financing and where we have the money, and I saw the Collins Credit Union, we've both got an account, some kind of money market account and a bond with them. And I wondered if there's any benefit. I can see, a few local banks, but I wonder if we could make the process a little simpler and kind of consolidate accounts, or if there's some benefit that we have at University Heights having a relationship with 4 different and 2 banks and 2 credit unions. Do you have any thoughts?
We used to always have our CDs at the credit union or Green State. And then our money accumulated so much and we got over the $250,000 threshold. So they had to start, they would have to write a letter of credit, which would be costly. So then we started looking at other banks to put money into, and Collins is across the street from where Jim Lane worked. And so we started expanding to that bank. And the last couple of CDs that have come due, I've just moved over to the savings accounts we have because the interest rate is not much more than, I mean, it's equal to what the interest rate is if we were to let it roll over.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take that money and, put it in a larger CD if we want to, or we can, like now we're going to be taking money out of accounts that,
Right.
so we don't have to bond for the Olive Court project. I think there's $90-some thousand in the budget for this current fiscal year. And now we won't have to do that because we have the money in reserves that we can use. And it's just happens that they're in savings accounts as opposed to a CD. So
we have enough, I guess, Casey, that we have to, because FDIC limits you to $250,000 of guaranteed. And so once we get over that at one institution, then we kind of have to move some money. So
Gotcha. Okay. I understand. Thanks.
Thank you. And are there any other questions for Bobby?
Bobby, I just emailed you, sent you 3 emails. One is the 3 neighborhood map showing from 2018, showing the rental percentages that we were looking at in 2018. One is Virginia Miller's affordable housing proposal, her initial proposal from 2018. And one is Mike Haverkamp's rental rehab proposal from 2017, just so you can look at them. Does anybody else want to see these, or just send them to Bobby and have him take a look?
I'd like to see them, if you don't mind, if you've got them.
Yeah, if you could send them to me, I'd like to see them too, Bobby.
Okay. I'll do that.
Okay.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, Lisa, if you would send that to me, that'd be great.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go on. Lisa, your government report.
How long do you want me to go on? I have a written report. I have nothing to add.
Any questions for Lisa? Okay, are there any announcements? Okay.
I'm sorry, I do have one announcement. I participated in a solarization for Johnson County meeting this week, and they're going to drop off 2 signs and some brochures, and I just told them to drop them off to the police department, and I'd like to have those signs up, so if anybody in town is interested in a solarization, they can check in with this group.
And Lisa can also put it on the website.
It's on the website.
Oh,
it's in my report, people.
Well, Lisa, I didn't see your report. I don't know.
I know. I know.
I was at the farmer's market. I don't know.
You can look at it after the meeting.
I didn't see it. Okay, it's already there. Very good. So any other announcements? Okay, is there any objection to adjournment? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned by unanimous consent. Thanks, everyone. We got a lot accomplished, I think. Thank you very much. I'll be contacting you about the meetings that Casey's going to be a participant in, and also JP.